Okay, so today I feel really privileged. We have Tony Rodrigues here, who I'm going to interview about the 20-year and back program. Is that correct, Tony?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Tony, again, thank you for your time. Would you like to give us a brief outline of where it all began and how you got into this program?
Well, it was a few programs. It was a
Hmm.
few different ones. Like I said, I was my class or my group of kids that went in were cobbled together. We were taken, and it wasn't for an official purpose. It was with leftover tech from the
Hmm.
from the program.
Right.
We were individually owned by individuals. It wasn't an official program. There,
But where did it all
towards the end
begin?
of it,
How did you get into the program? Like, how did it even become?
I was a kid in
Yeah.
I was a kid in. I grew up in southern Michigan, in out in the kind of out in the rural area under south of Ypsilanti, Michigan. And there was an old school there, and I went to school, and there was a kid that came in and said his dad. He's he said it just like this. He said one day I was in fourth grade. I was 9 years old. We're talking 1981, and I was in the talented and gifted program. We met on Wednesdays in the library, and this kid was there. He was like the smartest kid, and we didn't get along at all. So one day he says, My dad's an Illuminati. What's your dad do?" And he said it condescendingly, and
Yeah.
whatever we did, I didn't know what that meant. So our relationship didn't get along. We were boys in a class that didn't get along, and one day his dad came in and was the judge for the science fair. And when I walked by them, we were setting up our science exhibits. I walked by him. He said, "Dad, that's that boy I told you about." And it was and they talked about me. It was weird what they said. I don't remember what they said, but I remember it didn't make much sense. And he said, "And wow, he doesn't deserve that. No, he doesn't deserve that." And a couple of nights later, I was taken. I woke up with a gray and a reptile in my face in my bedroom. And what's that?
First time that had happened before, like waking up with.
Absolutely. Yeah, I woke up. I had no
Wow.
idea what was going on. We had no really weirdness in our lives before that. Um, I woke up and I was taken, and they took me somewhere and did medical procedures on me. They did a genetic test. We had to wait there. They said, "We're waiting on your genetics to come back, see if you're even compatible." And when it did come back, so I was with a short reptile. We wore a hood thing. There were a bunch of them in and out. There were a few other races there. We were an underground base or some base. It was back then. I had at that moment I had very bad eyesight. I wore glasses
Hmm.
and I didn't have glasses with me, so I could see the room blurry and I could see other ETs in the room, but I didn't really. I was very nearsighted. Um, when the test came back, they said you have just barely enough genetics for us to use you. You can go for one tour, and they explained to me, and I said, I was a kid, and I thought that I was in a, I thought that it was first contact. I thought aliens had landed, and
Oh.
they just were picking me, and I couldn't wait. I'm gonna go back and tell. I can't wait to go back and tell everybody about you guys. I was thrilled.
Wow.
I was just absolutely thrilled about it. I was so happy to make that. Here we are, and it was wonderful
Yeah.
to see other smart beings.
Right.
They were intelligent. Anyhow, long story short, they put me through a 20 and back program, which there's lots of info if anybody doesn't know. Like I said, I like the Randy Kramer info. Corey Good's got great info on it. There's a
Hmm.
lot of info about 20 and back technology. They're
Right.
taking people, they use them for 20 years. They get drafted into the military or labor program or whatever for whatever,
Right.
and then they can age reverse you. I believe there are more than one way. There's more than one form of technology to achieve the same thing.
Right.
In other words, there's cloning processes that are going on. There's age regression that's going on. There's more than one way. And in a nutshell, they take you, and then you live for 20 years, and then they send you back in time and do whatever they can, and you end up looking exactly like you did. So they age regress you, or they're putting you in consciousness in a different body. Who knows? But
Hmm.
it's pretty high tech, and it's real.
Yeah.
and put you back. And you end up back in your bed about 15 or 20 minutes later, and they can blank your memory so you don't remember anything. And they're doing this on a massive scale for millions of people, on a massive scale for using both slave labor and military duties out there in the colonies of the solar system, which there are many. There's probably hundreds by now that they're building out on every single rock in the solar system. Mars has, Randy Kramer estimated 10.5 million people on Mars. That was the estimate. I talked to him one time, and he said that was their estimate.
Right.
Ceres colony. I ended up living for about 12 years on Ceres colony, on the planetoid Ceres, for a German breakaway group with Germans that fled World War II, and then they went there and found a base that was already built and abandoned, or there were a couple other races living there, and they live there, and they're in charge of it, and it's all underground. There's a network of cities inside the planet Ceres.
They're basically an offshoot, these Germans, from the Nazis, like as in Joseph Mengele type.
Absolutely, and they report to the high command that's in Antarctica. Their high command that's in charge of them was in Antarctica, and then they also reported to a reptilian race that had a base in a temporal bubble around Jupiter. So there was a bubble that was, I don't know the circumstances, but when we went into it, the ship went into it. We had to leave at exactly the right angle, or once we went into one of those bubbles and came out at the wrong time, we were 16 hours in the past.
Oh my goodness!
So we had to take a slow run that wasted 16 hours. We stood there, the whole ship. We just waited after a 10-hour day. That went back to Ceres on time. We couldn't go straight back.
Yeah.
So that was a mistake. They even came over and said who made the mistake. The navigator came on. They came on the intercom and said. But I worked on a UFO. I worked on a ship where it was a cargo ship. It was about 1,000 feet by about 600 feet. Or they were in meters. It was 300 and something meters by something meters. Basically 1,000 feet by 600 feet, right?
Yeah.
That was about the size of the ship. It was curved. It was like one of the pumpkin seeds.
Wow.
I only saw the front of it. I never saw the whole ship at once. And I was a cargo engineer. I had 2 cargo bays that I was in charge of, and I had a few guys that worked under me that were cargo loaders. And I just basically, to be fair, I only did that for my last few years. I had to work up. Even as a slave, I was a slave. You had to work up in tasks.
In rank.
So that was where I made it to. I was promoted that far. There was plenty of room to go.
Yeah. In one of the interviews that you did, I believe it was with Dr. Michael Sala, talking about how you had to go up and close a valve, and you were burned with radioactive fluid or waste coming out. Does that, and I know that's how you received, did you get a higher rank for that?
Yeah, that's how I got that job.
Right.
That's right. That was on a prior ship that was antiquated, and it was more like a submarine, more like a cigar ship, and it looked like a submarine. We had submarine doors that you had to, that close, and then you had to step over the threshold. We'd always be in a hurry and trip on the threshold, even though it was years that we worked on it. You still hated walking through the doors. But I did repair, which was extreme, which sounds like I would have a lot of knowledge about how it worked, but it really wasn't like that. It was really an automated process. There was a screen that told us what to do. When we got in the morning and something would go wrong, the screen would change, and it would say, step 1, go and get these tools. 2, go there and remove the cover. And it would tell you everything to do. It was really mindless.
I seem to think that then perhaps that ship was propelled with some kind of nuclear fusion technology. I mean, do you know if it was a nuclear propulsion or some kind of cold fusion?
I don't know exactly what the reactor was, but I know that they were using water. And there was steam and there was water that was transferring things from one. Because most of the stuff we worked on were valves, were larger 6-inch pipes with big valves, and they would go bad. It was highly corrosive, the stuff that they used in there, and it would corrode the valves. They'd shut it off, and we had auto welding devices that would cut the pipe, and then we'd put a new valve and put it on. And that was often. I mean, it was like every other, once a week we were cutting off and replacing a valve. So it was an old ship, and there was radioactive water. We had radioactive areas that we had to be careful. It wasn't widespread like the whole place, but we were exposed to radiation down there. But what happened was there was a big one. There was a large pipe that was a purge valve. It purged, and right before they used one of the drives, they had to empty a tank. There was a tank that emptied and purged, and that valve went bad, and it was too big for our cutters, for our auto cutters to fix. And so they were like, we have to. It was just located in such a place that, and it was a big. We literally could crawl inside the pipe. Wow. Was how big it was.
Goodness.
And at that time, I was a smaller guy. I was probably 170 pounds, 160 pounds. But they just couldn't fix the valve. They said for them to fix that system, they were going to have to tear the whole thing apart, and it wasn't worth it. It was old ship. So we figured out a way to cut the bottom of the pipe, and we'd crawl up there, and all you had to do was pry on the valve or tap it, and it would close, and then they could do what they were going to do. I don't know exactly. They didn't. Again, that was a need-to-know basis. There was no window to look out. I didn't know where we were, what we were doing, nothing. Me and 3 other guys walked in the back door of the ship downstairs, and we were trapped in that area. They needed us on the other side of the ship. Sometimes they took us to work in other areas where there were 2 more guys like us that we never knew. We never knew them. We never met those people. We had and sometimes they needed a hand, some of our tools or whatever, and they would tell us on the screen, so-and-so's coming. Yeah. There's going to be an officer coming. You follow him and carry those with you.
Okay.
Huh?
You had someone that you reported to? Did you have a superior?
Yeah. They would come across they shocked us. We had shock collar. And they would shock us from the bridge. They would shock us. You get to work. You know, if we were messing around, they had cameras on us. Wow. And every now and then, if we were just goofing around, we didn't do anything. We were like kids, and we would get away with stuff. We'd see what we could get away with of being lazy, and they'd shock and zap. You know, you'd get zapped and then get back to work. Yeah. Keep an eye. Someone. They'd tell you the next day when you got there, the next morning. We'll be watching you because of yesterday. We had to shock you. We'll be watching you today. And we got that. We got disciplined and everything. But occasionally there would be somebody, an officer, that would come in and deal with us personally. You know, for whatever reason. There was always a different task. There was a circumstance. I don't know if it was a combat situation. I believe it was a combat situation, and they needed that valve closed immediately. And I was by myself, and I didn't want to. The deal was we had to have somebody pull us out. You were such a tight fit in there. You had to go in with your hand up, and then go up in the pipe, and then close that valve, and then have somebody pull you out. It was such a tight fit, you couldn't get out on your own. And the guy wasn't there for that day. They were moved somewhere else. I had another guy that worked with me. He wasn't there. And so I said back on the radio, there's nobody here. I can't do it. And they called down repeatedly, and there was panic. It sounded like there was panic in the guy. We need that valve now. We need that valve now. And they had anti-telephone technology where they would scrub the mission. They had anti-telephone technology. They could call back into the past. I don't know how they did it, but we used the term often. We spoke of the term of anti-telephone. That was a common word. Right. And I just thought they would anti-telephone the mission away, and we would never go. They would scrub the mission. There were plenty of times we showed up for work in the morning, and they said the mission's scrubbed. It was anti-telephone. It was a failure. And then we would just clean all day. We would just do maintenance. We would make sure everything was filled, all the levels and everything. We'd oil stuff, you know. Right. So I thought that was going to happen. And so I climbed up in the pipe. I crawled up there solo, and I closed the valve. And they did whatever, but it wasn't closed all the way, and I got cooked with steam, like a radioactive steam. I got my face very badly burnt. My hand was stuck. My right hand was burnt, just cooked. It was painful, and I remember breathing it in. And I lost consciousness. I remember when they pulled me out. Eventually, I don't know how much time went by, but they pulled me out, and I remember laying on the floor, freezing, like
burned,
because I had been boiled. So the air was all of a sudden was just freezing cold. I was just shivering, and they said that one of the officers came down. He said, "You got it bad. We're not going to be able to fix your face. That's going to be expensive. We're just going to get you back to work." And then the captain himself came down and said he's going to get the full medical treatment. This guy, I guess the situation I did, like if I would have been a citizen of Ceres, which all those guys were, the bridge crew, they were born on Ceres. They were Ceres colony Germans. They were not 20 and back out. They live there. They're still there. Hopefully. I mean, who knows what. I got a little bit of perks. I got perks because of that, because they said if I would have been a citizen, I would have got a medal. I would have medaled for that, for what I did. And, but I was a slave, so I got nothing. So they did find ways to reward me for that. And I got promoted to a pretty cushy job that on the next ship. That was the last mission of that ship. That mission decommissioned that ship because it failed. Because there was, because it would have cost me my life, just to do its thing. So they decommissioned it right then and there. And they fixed me. I remember waking up and I was fixed. I was just like me. I looked in the mirror. My face was fine. Everything was fine. I don't know how it happened. I ended up as a cargo engineer on the next ship. And it was months that the ship was in the hangar bay. We would go there and work on the ship and get familiar with it. We took classes. Yeah. They sent us to classes. You watch movies, on how to do my job, which didn't take long to learn. It was pretty easy. Basically, I weighed and measured cargo. And then I entered it into a touch screen. Oh, and then I had a report in the mission briefings. I was in the mission briefings in the morning. I would report, and they would speak in German. And they could turn it on and off, the translator. I think it was an implant, or I don't know exactly how it worked, but they could flip the switch. I could understand German. They would talk about details of the mission, and when they needed to know how much room was in my cargo bay, they would flick a switch, and they go, "Hey, hello, Jerry." My name was Jerry. Jerry. And they said, after gerustet, which is a German word for boiled or burnt.